So now we will move on to the last speaker of the day, Sunitha ji. Professor Sunitha Madhavan, retired professor and head of the Department of Economics, Meenakshi College, Chennai. Professor Sunitha Madhavan is the great-granddaughter of Rai Bahadur V. Venkayya, a double gold medalist from the University of Madras. She has, to her credit, 3 decades of teaching experience at various colleges in Chennai. Ethiraj College for Women, SIET College for Women, and Meenakshi College. She was the guest lecturer at Stella Maris College and lesson writer for M.Com correspondence course at Madras University. She retired as professor and HOD of economics, Meenakshi College, Chennai in 2002 and settled in the US. She authored the book Life and Works of Rai Bahadur V. Venkayya, published with foreword by Padma Bhushan Dr. R. Nagaswamy, Tamil Arts Academy 2020. Sunitha is a freelance writer and had contributed articles, newspapers, journals, and magazines. The Hindu, the Indian Express, Madras Musings, Vidura, Press Institute of India, Bhavan's Journal, Quarterly Journal of Mythic Society, Bangalore, Avanam, Archaeological Society, Tanjore, and Hinduism Today magazine. She has instituted the V. Venkayya Epigraphy Award at the Tamil Heritage Trust, Chennai. In July this year, she presented a paper, The Sacred Kural and the Stalwart Epigraphist, at the conference in MI, organized by the International Association of Tamil Research and the Michigan Tamil Sangam, celebrating its Golden Jubilee year. Sunitha ji is going to talk about historical narratives and inscriptions. She has mentioned some specific inscriptions also, though that is not being articulated in the title. Okay, Sunitha ji, please go ahead and present your talk.
Namaskaram, everybody. It gives me great gratification to be in the midst of scholars and lovers of Bharatiya culture. I profusely thank the organizers at Indica, Dr. Nagaraj, Sri V. Srinivas, and others for having made this mega event possible. My foray with the Indica webinar started when I joined a course on temple management by Dr. Deepa Duraswamy, and I immensely benefited from it. The current topic, statecraft, political thought and governance, on which the symposium is being held, I should say, is being done at the most appropriate month of the year. September has been chosen by the UN General Assembly to be celebrated as the International Democracy Day. And that is why I am thrilled to present a paper on Uttaramerur inscriptions. They are, in fact, the best of Indian political thought and culture. And they are on the walls of the temples at a village, remote village, Uttaramerur, near Kanchipuram. And they all speak about village self-government democratic procedures that were in vogue thousands of years ago, a distant past. But yet, the These inscriptions have made waves in this millennium. When the Bhumi Puja was done for the new Parliament House, Modi ji, Prime Minister Modi ji, had time and again proclaimed that India has been one of the oldest among democratic countries. So, it is with immense pleasure that I'm presenting my paper. Hello? These inscriptions were first discovered by my great-grandfather, Rai Bahadur V. Venkayya. He was, in fact, a scholar in both Sanskrit and Tamil, belonging to the lineage of Appaya Dikshidhar. He was a science graduate, a physics graduate from the Madras Christian College. And he joined as a high school science teacher at the Anderson Missionary School in Kanchipuram, the temple town. On his visit to Mamallapuram, the chance meeting with Dr. Hulsh, who was just then appointed as the Madras Epigraphist, a wing of the Archaeological Survey of India, turned a new leaf in his career. The school teacher became the first Indian epigraphist and historian, and he succeeded Hulsh when the latter voyaged back to his fatherland. And John Marshall appointed him as the chief epigraphist of the Government of India, a post that was created because of the sensational inscriptions that Venkayya had discovered. Now, well, what is so very significant about the Uttaramerur inscriptions? They all speak about self-governance in the village of Uttaramerur. Next slide. Hello? Yes. The inscriptions, in fact, laid out strict standards of moral and ethical conduct in public service. And they all are about the mode of elections that were conducted in that village for electing members of various committees to conduct the affairs of the village. In fact, Dr. Nagasamy would refer to them as a written constitution that had prevailed in the most civilized Tamilian country in a bygone era. Next slide, please. Venkayya found these inscriptions at a time when Indian nationalism was on the rise. Mahakavi Bharatiyar and Venkayya were contemporaries. And there was yet another discovery by Venkayya, that was the Tiruvalangadu plates of Rajendra Chola the first, which Mahakavi Bharadiyar had translated and published in his editorial, the India Weekly. Well, now let us be back to the Uttaramerur village. This village has got 7 temples. All of them are full of inscriptions. And they all speak about the democratic practices in yesteryears. So this was revealed at a time when the British aristocracy had rebuffed India's competence to undertake responsibilities for a complete national life. Vincent Smith, the famous historian, European historian, has said in his book that it is a pity that the apparently excellent system of local government, really popular in their origin, should have died at ages ago. Modern governments would be happier if they could command such a local agency. Next slide. Next. Now we are in the village Uttaramerur, and you see the temple with the inscriptions on its side walls. The temples belong to the Pallava and Chola periods. You may wonder how that happens. A temple may be built by one dynasty when it is reigning supreme in that region. But with the passage of time, when another dynasty comes to great power and dominates the region, it will extend to the temple or renovate the temple. And when this happens, the monarchs leave their marks, that is, records of the events that had taken place in their regime. That's how a temple comes to have the inscriptions belonging to various dynasties. Now, both Pallavas and the Cholas had excelled in stonecraft as well as statecraft. The existence of the Pallava dynasty itself was discovered by Venkayya when he met Hulsh at Mamallapuram. See, that was in 1886 December. So it is that Hulsh inducted him into his epigraphy department. And the collaboration brought forth the magnus opus, South Indian Inscriptions. 3 volumes were by Venkayya and Hulsh. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, we are seeing a temple called Vaikuntha Perumal temple. This is also in Uttaramerur, and it contains a lot of inscriptions of a very detailed nature, and that gives us an inkling into the mode of elections conducted in the village at that time. The time machine now has to be set back. We are going to the era of Parantaka Chola the first. Next slide, please. This is the plaque at the entrance of the Vaikuntha Perumal temple, which tells us that Uttaramerur had been a Chaturvedi Mandalam. Chaturvedi Mandalam means there had been learned scholars on all the 4 Vedas residing in the area, in the village. In fact, it is a Brahmadeya, a Brahmin settlement. The kings have made them reside in that place, and land has been given to them for the purpose of perpetuating the Vedas. Now, who had done that? This was done at the period of Parantaka Chola the first, who is also called as Veeranarayana. And this Parantaka Chola is known for his political conquests. Next slide. Next slide. Next. Parantaka, though involved in military conquests, expanding his territory, he also was equally concerned with internal administration. He ascended the throne in 907 AD. In his 14th regnal year, he sent an emissary to this village of Uttaramerur, calling for rules to be framed for good governance. The village people also agreed to it. We call it as the village assembly, which is nothing but all the people residing in the village. So the village assembly formed rules for self-governance. But the rules had been lax. So what would result? Disorder prevailed. So in the next 2 years, again Parantaka Chola sent an officer requiring that stringent rules be framed to restore order. This appeal, royal appeal from the king, was placed by the assembly to all the residents there. And the residents also agreed. Next, you now have to understand that Parantaka Chola was the supreme ruler at that age, that time. But just because he sent his officer to set right matters, or it doesn't mean that the village assembly should accept that and immediately implement it. The village functioned as a little republic. It enjoyed full autonomy. The royal appeal will be placed before the villagers. They will assemble and they have to decide whether it could be taken forward. Only when the village assembly approves of it, the order takes effect. So this is something very astonishing. At the top of the hierarchy in the administration, Chola administration, you have monarchy. But at the grassroots level, the village level, democracy prevailed. Elections were conducted. The village assembly conducted the affairs of the village through setting up village committees. And three prominent committees are mentioned in the Uttaramerur inscriptions. Venkayya had published the text of the inscriptions in the Archaeological Survey of India Annual Report 1904-1905. And you will see in the footnote a line that is telling about the previous publication of the results of Uttaramerur inscriptions in the Madras Epigraphical Report of 1899. These two publications, in fact, wowed the Westerners and awed their scholars. How come democratic procedures had evolved? Because democracy is a milestone in the evolution of human civilization. Next, yeah. Now here comes the translation. The translation makes us understand that for purposes of election, the village was divided into 30 wards. And the committees that were appointed were three: the garden committee, the annual committee, and the tank committee. Their names are indicative of the four portfolios handled by them. The annual committee was doing the general supervision. It could be taken that way. There were other committees also, like the Gold Committee, etc., which are mentioned, and it is at the discretion of the village assembly how many committees it will have. In this case, these three committees operated at the Uttaramerur village. The garden committee and the annual committee had 12 members each. The tank committee had 6 members. In all, you have 30 members. The kings built not only temples but also tanks. They have to be desilted, see, and they all have to be kept in good order so that they provide groundwater to the nearby houses, lands for irrigation purposes. In order to elect the members of these committees, you have to specify what will be the qualifications for candidates to contest. And here, if you read, the pupils of our eyes will dilate. Such were the sublime standards specified. Parantaka Chola had, as I told you earlier, sent officers on two occasions. The first one, obviously, being not in the correct direction, causing disorder. It could be embezzlement of funds, some fraud. So that is what required a correction, a better order to be restored. So we are now looking into the second set of inscriptions that were in fact meant for restoring order in Uttaramerur village. So this committee, next, these inscriptions are to be found in the Grama Sabha of the Vaikuntha Perumal temple. It is replete with inscriptions regarding qualifications, disqualifications, and the method of electing the candidates. The qualifications required that the candidates be between the ages of 35 and 70. And they should be well versed in Brahmana mantras, that is scriptures, dharmashastras, so that they will be dharmic in their dealings and be righteous in their conduct. Purity of conduct was placed on a very high pedestal. That's what made Mahaperiva of Kanchi, next slide, read those inscriptions. When Teen Session was shunted to the post of election commissioner, he went to have darshan of Mahaperiva. The sage suggested that he go to Uttaramerur and read the inscriptions. The devotee T.N. Session did exactly what was told. And then the press interviewed him for the success of the electoral reforms he brought about. Session attributed it all to Mahaperiva's advice to visit Uttaramerur. So these inscriptions do have relevance to our modern times. That should be borne in mind. Purity of conduct is upheld even by Valluvar in his Tirukkural. ஒழுக்கம் விழுப்பன் தரலான் ஒழுக்கம் உயிரினும் ஓம்பப்படும். And தெய்வத்தின் குரல் has a separate chapter on Uttaramerur Uttama Terdal Murai in volume 4. Next. The political inscriptions are to be found on the walls. It is along that way that the walking god must have walked and noted down all the inscriptions. The Grama Sabha is a mandapam in the temple campus where the village assembly regularly met to sort out, discuss the matters pertaining to the village. Next, now we are going to read those incredible inscriptions. How does the settlement start? We, the members of the assembly of Uttaramerur Chaturvedi Mangalam, made the following settlement. Look at that. We, the members. Who are the members? The villagers, the people residing there. How does the US Constitution start? Drafted way back in 1787. How does the Indian Constitution drafted in December 1946 start? We, the people. See? The will of the people is the will of God. So the royal verdict takes effect only when accepted by the villagers. The purpose of the new settlement was also spelled out in the Uttaramerur inscription, so that the settlement is made because wicked men may perish while good men might prosper. So this should remind us of the last lines of Vishnu Sahasranama. See? So the village, as I told you earlier, had the 3 committees. And the members were elected by pot tickets. That is nothing but secret ballot system. It was called as Kudavolai Tittam. Kudam is pot, Volai is the palm leaf. So that was used as the ballot paper, the palm leaf. And they were all deposited in a kudam, a pot. Next, the palm leaves were called as pot tickets, and they were given to deserving, qualified candidates to contest in the elections. They will be between the ages of 35 and 70, and they must be actually living at the time that they are standing for the election in the houses built by them in their own site. See? And all this should have come from the resources that they had earned through honest means. That is very important. See, and as I told you earlier also, the mantra brahmanas, knowledge of the shastras, business skills are also required. And their past record of honesty and purity of conduct definitely matters most. The disqualifications will be people who had previously been in any one of the committees, but they have not submitted accounts. See? And even if they had been member in the previous year, they cannot stand for election again. It should be by rotation. The office is by rotation. And the tenure of office is only for 1 year. If there are people who had committed fraud, forgery, adultery, or have stolen property, then such people can never contest for the elections. They are debarred forever. Not only them, their relatives, their close friends are also debarred for 7 generations. Look at the severe retribution. Now, the elected members also, once taking office, cannot think that they will be there for the entire tenure. Any failing on their part to carry out their duties properly will give the right to the people to call them back. And that is the end of their career. Next. Well, the pot tickets, which I've seen earlier, the palm leaves, they are given them to the villages. The villages, the village had 30 wards. The names of eligible candidates must be written for each of the 30 wards. So, each one of the 30 wards will write down the qualified people residing in that, belonging to that ward. And these will be bundled separately. So, if all the 30 wards do that way, there will be 30 bundles. All the 30 bundles will be put in one pot. The day of election will be announced. Entire village has to assemble. No one is exempted. Only those who are mentally not healthy, or those who had gone on a pilgrimage. See, it was all done by foot those days. And one is not certain whether they will return or not also in those days. So they are exempted. Now, in this assembly of people, the eldest temple priest stands up and lifts the pot that contains the 30 bundles of pot tickets. A young boy, he is probably a child who cannot read or write, he is beckoned to take out one bundle from the pot. So he would do it. That bundle is opened and all the names, the pot tickets in that bundle belonging to a particular ward is now transferred to another empty pot and they'll be well shaken. The little boy again is asked to take one palm leaf out of that. So the arbitrator will receive that particular palm leaf, the pot ticket, and he will do it with his palm open so that all will see what is happening. There should be no fraud. He will read out the name on the pot ticket. So that person, the name, is accepted as being elected. The name will be repeated by all the priests so that everybody hears it properly. This practice has to be repeated for each of the 30 wards. So 30 members thus will be selected because from each bundle, one person, pot leaf is selected and the person with that name on the pot leaf is selected. Probably the above procedure would have avoided nepotism, electoral and financial frauds. Today, votes are being bought, and vote counting, that also becomes a big problem. So these are all surmounted by this procedure. And there is also an element of divinity imparted, because a child is playing a role, a very crucial role. This is also like a two-stage election or selection. In US, you have the popular majority, and then you also must have majority in the electoral college. You see? Next. All these election processes you find etched, inscribed on the walls of the Vaikuntha Perumal temple. Venkayya's findings of these inscriptions triggered off a spate of literature on village administration. It was first Sakote Krishnasamy Iyengar, who was Venkayya's contemporary and also a neighbor in Bangalore. And then by Krishna Sastri, who was Venkayya's own assistant. And decades later came Nilakanta Sastri, who wrote his book on Cholas in 1935. Then you have Ramachandra Dikshita, Majumdar, Appadurai, Mukherjee, Dr. Nagasamy, and the list goes on. So much of information had flowed over time on village administration in India. Next. Next, please. This is Sundara Varadaraja Perumal temple in Uttaramerur village. Here also you see on the walls, side walls, inscriptions. They all are in Tamil and Grantha. Grantha script is a mixture of Tamil and Sanskrit. The language itself is like that. Venkayya was familiar with such scripts because slokas in those times, even I, as a young girl, had read slokas only in Grantha. Since Tamil does not have kakka, gaga, such phonetics. Next. Next, yes. The Chola legacy had continued down the ages. Here we see the Tanjore big temple. That is again full of inscriptions on the base, on the walls, on the pillars. See? And the script is Old Tamil. Venkayya was the one who discovered these inscriptions and deciphered them. As he deciphered the Pallava Grantha inscriptions at Mamallapuram. Before Venkayya, nobody knew that Pallava and Cholas had ruled South India. They all thought that Mamallapuram, which was earlier known as Mahabalipuram, was built by Mahabali, the demon king, because there is a um, 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 a sculpture there, see, where Mahabali is bowing down and Vishnu is keeping his one foot on his head. So also the Tanjore temple, by virtue of its height, 216 feet, and the layout being so very vast, people thought that it was built by Tanjasuran, an Asuran, a mythical person who is mentioned in the Mahatmyam during Marathi reign of Tanjore. Only when Venkayya deciphered these inscriptions did people realize that there was one Narasimha Pallava, Mahendra Pallava, Rajaraja Chola, and all that. Next, I should tell you that the Tanjore temple and the inscription that we saw also mentions about more than 150 village assemblies that all enjoyed autonomy, and they were all competent, and they looked into the affairs of the village themselves. In this millennium also, Cholas, and not only their history but their inscriptions had continued to remain as a source of inspiration. The new Parliament House, when inaugurated, saw the Chola Sengol. You see there. See? It is the scepter. Tirukkural again has a complete chapter on the significance of the Sengol. Then you have the layout of the new Parliament House, which is in the design of a Sri Chakra. This also, perhaps, like the little boy who picked up the pot ticket, see, the design imparts divinity, so that purity and piety will be there while conducting or legislating, enacting legislation for the welfare of the people. Next, the last slide. So we have got lessons to take from Uttaramerur inscriptions. It is now the lodestar. Uttaramerur body politic had demonstrated how purity and excellence in public life can pave the path towards civilized living. Surprisingly, in those times also, our ancestors have had the same problems that plague our political climate today. More than 1,000 years ago, they've had their vision to frame rules that can surmount these problems, but it requires grit and unity that alone will help in implementing electoral reforms. See? So the Chola administration to this day remains an inspiration. The consciousness of the Uttaramerur village people and their righteousness in their demeanor, though astonishing, are what the citizens owe to their community. There is much to imbibe from them for all the governments. So, thank you. With this, we conclude this topic.
Thank you very much, Amma. We are blessed, really blessed to have a senior scholar like you, and you presented a much more senior member of your own family, Venkayya ji, who has worked so thoroughly, and how blessed your students must have been with this soft and sattvika voice and beautiful way of explaining all those years in all the colleges where you worked. Students must have been so blessed to have your classes. And now this explanation is also so really enlightening. When this video gets uploaded on Indica Academy's YouTube channel, this is going to have a large audience. Everyone will definitely like this information that you brought out about this Uttaramallu inscription and its decipherment done by Venkayya ji. All his influence on the later historians also, all those details. And people probably do not know that there is such a detailed inscription. Most of the inscriptions, they just have some indicative information about dana done to a specific individual at a specific spot. But such detailed descriptions in inscriptions are very, very rare. We are so fortunate that they decided to detail the democracy of those times and all the number of villages in which this democracy prevailed in such great detail in the inscription. Thank you very much, Amma, and my danda pranam to you from distance.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amma. So we are so blessed. All of us are so blessed to have you. So with this, we'll be concluding the symposium. Thank you. My first gratitude goes to the founder of Indica, Harikiran Vadlamani Garu, who came up with the idea of all these symposiums. And particularly this particular symposium, the topic was also chosen by him, statecraft governance and leadership topic. Thanks to Harikiran Vadlamani Garu and all my colleagues at Indica Academy, particularly to Srinivas Garu and Koti Garu, who work behind the screens for conducting these symposiums, particularly Srinivas Garu, who has spent all the time for these 2 days for making this conducting of the symposium successful, and all the background work that he has been toiling, really working very hard for organizing this symposium, organizing the group, being in touch with the presenters, everything. And any symposium or any such event is not successful without you, the audience, and the audience have been patiently attending both the days. Gradually, the number of audience becomes very small. That has what has happened even now. And yesterday, the symposium ran up to 7:30 or so, but today we are able to close it at around 6 o'clock. Uh, all the all the talks were excellent, very rigorous, very deep, highly enlightening, very well researched, uh, with meticulous analysis on the topic. Thank you, all the speakers, all the 22 speakers of both these days. Uh, I thank all the speakers. It is difficult to name all the 22 now at this moment. So I can only say that please take it as mentioning each one of you by name. Thank you. Thank you again. And with a Shanti Mantra, let us close the 2-day long symposium. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.